The hits just keep coming for the Dempster Dems, according to NBC's, God bless you, Dana, latest poll. Just 30% of registered voters view the Democratic Party positively, making them less popular than the agency they constantly smear as Nazis. That's ICE. But look on the bright side. The Democrats are more popular than Iran. And it doesn't stop there. The knives are out for party chair Ken Martin for overseeing a dysfunctional DNC. Donors, operatives, and some DNC members are questioning his leadership, fundraising ability, and handling of the party's still secret autopsy of the 2024 election loss. And Greasy Gab just cooked up a word salad that would put Kamala to shame.
What is the thing you want to accomplish, like politically?
I don't have like a brand. I'm into that whole 60s, the vernacular of the 60s, solving for ignorance and poverty and disease, and the spirit of the 60s, and the spirit of King, and and how the nonviolent movement, and Gandhi, and Havel, and Mandela, that moral authority, that whole space. That's the zeitgeist.
If you had to define it, like, vote
I need
for
your help
me
to define
and
it.
you get
Well, you tell
X.
me. You're better at this.
I don't know. I don't know who you. What
I
your
know
is.
my why, but how do you translate that into human?
What?
So the guy asked you, how do you want to deliver to the American people? And he said, Gandhi, Havel, zeitgeist. What was that?
I don't know. I can watch that again because he's like, wait, what? It's the same. Interesting about the Democrats, like, they have time to try to pull it together, and maybe they will. But that poll is not good for them. No. I did note that the only thing lower than that is AI, and that was on a bipartisan basis. Let that be a note to everybody watching here, indeed. The other thing that they're wanting to do here is to, I think, just separate themselves so much from President Trump that I'm not saying they're rooting for America to lose, but they're not saying America wants to win. And I get it that America, tired of forever wars, but they also really want to win. They don't like losing, and rooting for failure is a terrible idea.
Mm-hmm. And that answer to that question was a failure, Greg. He might need to workshop that.
Yeah, that's true. Just another thing about the Muslims. Trump is, dare I say it, radically normal, almost extreme in his normalcy. And because of that, he's forced his haters to reject not just the man, but just the normal common sense positions that he takes. You can't share the lane with him because you're embarrassed that you're in the lane with him. So you end up embracing men in female sports, men in locker rooms, men in women's bathrooms, drag queen story hour, open borders, criminal justice reform that borders on idiocy. These are all things they take because Trump isn't there next to them. They will harbor deadly killers because Trump wants to imprison them. That's where they've gotten. So this is where you got to remind people and maybe just listen and do this experiment. Trump is the most, and I think you'd agree with me, Dana, because we talked about this for years. He's the most centrist president we probably ever had since maybe Gerald Ford. If Democrats had let go of their irrational hatred, they would see that they have way more in common with Trump than they do with their activist component of their own party. If they had read Trump's positions on a blank page, they would think it was Bill Clinton. And this is why Trump wins on the 80-20 issues, because what's 80? It's mainstream. What's 20? It ain't stream. I don't know what that means either. But it's weird how you see people, and Harold, you're getting there, but you're not quite there.
Did you want to say something else about the Muslims?
Yes. People who you would assume are normal don't act normal anymore. Gavin Newsom was normal 15 years ago. Spanberger seemed normal. Now they would rather die on the most absurd hills because the hill doesn't have the orange devil on it.
Don't forget Mayor Pete.
Mayor Pete.
Your name was invoked, Harold?
So first, I would say the most centrist president we've had, and I say this just out of maybe you can correct me, is with Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton, a Democrat, passed a crime bill, reformed welfare, balanced the budget, and said that abortions have to be rare, legal, and safe. So we can debate about the Ford thing. I'd say to both parties right now, anybody that thinks that you are competing for an electorate that is partisan, meaning they're anti-Trump only or they're anti-Democrat only, you're going to lose. You're competing for an electorate that is struggling to pay bills, struggling to think about their future, struggling how their future is going to include their kids and themselves in a way that makes them happy and safe, and for that matter, great again. That's what we have to be focused on, Democrat and Republican. The polls, Dana said it well, Democrats may figure this out or they may not. I think Republicans have to be mindful of this as well. You have 55 people retiring from the Congress, 34 Republicans. Many of those seats are seats that Democrats lost by 1 or 2 points in the last cycle. Democrats were running competitive people in those races. Democrats shouldn't feel overconfident because of the 2025 results and even the last few weeks' results. Because if you don't have answers, either party, if you think it's all partisanship, you're not going to win. What I do agree with Greg on is that Donald Trump is a transformational figure in politics. He upended the normal vernacular. He's aligned with Republicans, but he has Democrat views and he has Republican views and he has some views that defy both parties. You're going to win the electorate if you take seriously their concerns.
Kennedy.
It's really interesting because I think you're absolutely right here. And we have just these shifting coalitions, and that's what people have to build upon. But they're making the mistake. You have voters from both parties, and especially independents, saying, we want someone who fights for us. And what they want someone to fight for is their version of the American dream and their own success. They don't necessarily want someone who's fighting against Donald Trump. And that's what people like Gavin Newsom, that's the mistake that they're making. You know, that's the only thing that he's got going for him, but it is also his fatal flaw. I think what you're seeing now with Newsom is he doesn't know who he is. And a lot of Democrats are just standing by and letting him chop off his own body parts one by one. And they're hoping that the first in, first out strategy is a winning one for them, because he doesn't have any longevity in this race, because he is showing himself to be as illiterate and dumb as he claimed on that stage about a week and a half ago.
All right. Anything else on the Muslims, Greg?
Well, it's a good question.
All right, we got to go.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.